Okay. All right. Hello, everyone, and good evening. It's good to see most of you have joined, and we're hoping that more will join as we proceed with today's session. So thank you so much again for showing up. Like we always say every week, showing up is one important step, and it's one step towards getting ready to sit for your PMP exams. You have seen some of the other candidates that were here. They've gone ahead to take the exams, they've passed, and we're all going to go there. And just a small story about myself. When I was sitting for my PMP exam, I failed to show up several times, and I kept postponing to even schedule for the exam. And the time that I decided to, I put in all the effort and managed to sit for the PMP exam and passed. So you showing up today means a lot, and I encourage you as well to keep pushing, keep studying, and we'll get there. So like we always do, feel free to post where you're from. I'm originally from Kenya. I'm based out of Dubai, and I've been working for PMI for about 6 years now, and I help you with these sessions to ensure that you're well prepared to sit for the PMP exam. So today's session will be about leading people. Going to talk about collaboration, conflicts, team performance, among other things. And our instructor today is equally very qualified to take us through this session. He's a certified instructor as well. He's PMP certified as well. He has a good background in Agile with the DSSM certification. And her name is Peace Kikoni from Uganda, and she'll be sharing more today. So please post on the chat where you're from. She probably doesn't know. I know that she was asking me where most of the guys are coming from. Please post on the chat where you're from. It will just help with the engagement so that she's able to connect with you directly. As you do that, we will start, and I will pass it on to Peace.
Okay, thank you, Nelson. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to this revision session. And like Nelson said, my name is Peace Chikoni, and I'll be taking you through this revision. I'm from Uganda, and hopefully we'll get to chat later. But today we're going to talk about the people domain in the PMP exam. So we're focusing on the people domain. I hope you've covered the processes and the business environment. But during your training session, I think you were told that the PMP exam is about 3 domains: people, process, and the business environment. So today we're going to focus on the first 3 tasks, and that is manage conflict, support team performance, and lead a team. Okay, so the first task we're going to begin with is managing conflict, and those are some of the things that you need to do. So to manage conflict, you need to be able to interpret the source and stage of the conflict, you need to analyze the context of the conflict, and you need to evaluate or recommend, reconcile the appropriate conflict resolution solution. So you've probably already have a team in place, and you were told that any team, if you have good people, will probably encounter conflict. Conflict is inevitable. So it's not a case of when it happens. It's not a case of if it happens, it's a case of when it happens. So you need to be able to manage that conflict. If you have a good team, they're bound to conflict. But the good thing is that they're unlikely to be conflicting about personal matters. So an extremely important part of that project leadership is maintaining a peaceful, productive working environment. So let's start with managing conflict. Just an overview on what you tackled. Why does it matter? Why does conflict management matter? You looked at some of those things. Ineffective conflict management leads to destructive behavior, animosity, and poor performance and reduced productivity, while effective
I think, Peace, we lost you. We can't hear you.
Standing better performance and
I'm not sure if it's just me, but I can't hear you anymore. Hi, Peace. Okay, yeah, just bear with me. I will just check in with her to see what the issue is, and then we'll be back up. For those joining, just give us a second. The instructor is having challenges with her internet, but she'll join shortly. She's joining back in a few minutes. Hi, Peace. Can you hear me? We still are not able to hear you. For those that have just joined, we are just waiting for the instructor to join back in, and we will continue. Please confirm if you can hear me. I see you joined now. I can't hear you. Right. Please, I see that you're back in. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
And my screen, can you see anything?
No, not yet. There's nothing being shared.
No.
No.
Nothing?
It's coming. Now I can see it, yes.
Okay, so apologies about that. We're talking about conflict management, which you covered in lesson 4. And we said you already have a diverse set of people, a good team that's working together, but they're going to be conflicting regardless of how good they are. So you need to be able to manage that conflict. Ineffective management leads to all those things you see on the screen, and effective management will lead to improved understanding, better performance, and higher productivity. So it's in your interest as a project manager to be able to manage that conflict. We're just flipping through that first, that one of the topics in lesson 4 about conflict management. Okay, so regardless of the approach that you're using, predictive or agile, you'll still need to be able to manage the conflict on that. Just 1 second, please. Okay, so managing conflict is a responsibility of all the stakeholders. Okay, and the direction and the handling of the conflict, that's entirely up to you as a project manager. You'll need to use your servant leadership skills. You need to use your interpersonal skills to resolve the conflict on your team. Okay, so let's look at some of the causes of conflict. Conflict will arise from so many different things. It could be competition, it could be differences in objectives, but the beauty about it is that it is rarely personal. Competition among that high-performing team of yours, differences in objectives, values, and perceptions, disagreement with the roles, with the tasks, with how long they're going to take, communication breakdowns, projects that are just, all those can be causes of conflict. So if you understand that, if you understand even that forming a team that is just performing together or forming together will have to go through a certain storming stage. You'll need to manage those conflicts. Every team will go through a storming stage when they're forming, and that could cause some conflict. Okay, so competition, differences in objectives, disagreements about the roles and the tasks, communication breakdown, all those are areas that could cause conflict on your project. You need to be able to manage that. Okay. Conflict as part of team culture. The team members need to be able to exchange ideas freely. So you have to create a psychologically safe environment for them. They need to be able to exchange ideas, exchange point of views about their work, and disruptions in any status quo. If your project is trying to disrupt the status quo, trying to introduce something new, there's bound to be some conflict there. The team would have previously collaborated perhaps on creating ground rules, those ground rules that you've placed in a team charter, but That psychologically safe environment is very key for them to be able to be themselves. So view that disruption, view that innovation as something positive, but enable them to get through that storming stage as quickly as possible. Encourage that exchange of ideas. Put some ground rules in the team charter about what is acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable behavior, and prevent those disagreements from escalating to conflict. Okay, just manage that conflict as possible, and focus on as you manage it, focus on the issues as opposed to the individuals. Remember that, so that you can approach those conflict situations. Try and understand everybody. In the team charter that you would have created when you were forming the team in lesson 2, you talked about bringing the team together and getting a team charter creating that team charter that has all the ground rules for the team members. So as you handle the conflict, inside those ground rules, there should be some guidelines on how they can manage the conflict by themselves, so they avoid coming to you as a project manager with all those conflicts of theirs. So use preferred ways of managing conflict from the team charter, the ones that you've agreed upon. You can provide guidance and resources to help the team, but Agile teams will also include those conflict management strategies in their ways of working. Okay, and focus on the team member, on the issues that are being conflicted about, as opposed to the individuals. Okay, some guidelines as you create your project, as you create that team charter. Try and discuss with the team members what the different levels of conflict would probably be like, so that you have an idea how to resolve them. Determine what is level 1, determine what is level 2, determine what is level 3, and you can use these levels of conflict as some kind of guidance. Use them to guide you, use them to create some structure on how you'd manage the conflict. So in that team charter, include this and use it as a guideline. Okay, so maybe level 1 is a problem to solve, define what that is, and that that problem to solve. Define what level 2 is, that is similar to a disagreement. Define level 3, a contest, level 4, the fight or flight, and even level 5. But in that team charter also include at what stage, if you're using something like Lee's level, what level should they escalate to you? So you'll have these 5 levels. The conflict will intensify, but what level should they escalate to you? And at what level are you empowering them to resolve their own conflicts? Okay, what is unacceptable behavior? Is level 5 probably unacceptable? So this model by Speed B. Lees is widely used to manage project teams. Okay, it describes basically how conflict emerges and evolves. So in your team charter, you can also have these levels guided by this model of conflict. Okay, level 1, problem solve. Level 2, disagreement, contest, fight or flight, and intractable solution. And determine in the team charter what is unacceptable behavior. And once you've done that, then you also need to start thinking about the ways you're going to manage the conflict. You'll need to use your interpersonal skills, okay, to understand the conflict, but you can also use certain strategies. But if we look at the interpersonal skills first, you will need to use your emotional intelligence, influencing skills, leadership, decision-making, and even active listening. Emotional intelligence, there's the empathy aspect of emotional intelligence that you need to use to understand and diffuse the situation, because you need to understand from the different points of view, the different sides of the argument. Okay, influencing, you'll need to persuade those parties to reconsider. Leadership, your leadership skills, maybe to steer the conflicting parties in a more positive direction. And then decision making, you'll need to offer a certain solution, because sometimes the solutions won't be that easily available. Then active listening, try and listen to both. Don't even just listen to the accusing language, but even observe the physical body postures and all of that. All these are just your interpersonal skills that you can use to manage conflict, as opposed to the strategies that you can use. So now when we look at strategies, combine the two. Combine your interpersonal skills and the approaches to conflict management to resolve the conflict. Combine those two. You can use smoothing or leveling, smoothing or accommodating, withdrawing or avoiding, compromising or reconciling, forcing or directing, collaborating or problem solving. But even the approaches that you pick to resolve that conflict will depend on the people, the stakeholders that are arguing, the situation that you're in, all that matters. So you'll need to do some analysis of the situation and pick the approach that you're going to use. If the conflict is delaying the project somehow, then maybe you'll need to force or direct. Pursue your viewpoint at the expense of others and offer only win or lose solutions so they can speed up the resolution of that conflict. Or you might want to use smooth or accommodate to emphasize areas of agreement so that someone is conceding position to maintain harmony and relationships. Or withdraw, avoid, retreating from the situation, or even postponing the issue. Compromise or reconcile, you're incorporating different and multiple viewpoints, enabling that enablement of different attitudes, open dialogue so that you can reach consensus. Okay, and then collaborating with problem solving, you incorporate several viewpoints and insights from varying perspectives, and it requires basically you to look at the cooperative attitudes and have an open dialogue and look for solutions that typically lead to consensus and commitment. So before you even think about the different approaches, first analyze what situation, analyze the parties that are conflicting, and then pick the right, an approach that would be suitable to resolve that conflict. So the approach will depend on the intensity, the time given to resolve it. Maybe you don't have time, so you need to force or direct, the positions of the conflicting party, and even the motivation that you have to resolve those conflicts as quickly as possible. All that could influence the approach that you select. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So looking at conflicting, managing conflict, and initially we said you need to interpret the source and stage of the conflict, analyze the context of the conflict because context counts, and then evaluate or recommend or reconcile the appropriate conflict resolution solutions. Okay, so if we have let's just see. If you took a look at this question, which conflict management approach is best suited for a situation where both parties refuse to give in on their position? Out of those approaches we've talked about, which one would that be? Okay, just a minute for you to think. If you said compromise or reconcile, you're okay. Okay. What about this one? Which conflict management approach is best suited for a situation where much is not known and currently the time to research and resolve the conflict is not available? Okay. Said accommodate or smooth, you'd be okay. And then there is conflict between two team members regarding a project task. Which conflict resolution method should project managers use to make it a win-win situation? You said collaborate or problem solve, then you'd be okay. So I hope that review of managing conflict will help you resolve certain answer some questions right on the PMP exam. Let's move on to the second topic, the second task, which is leading a team. And to lead a team, you need to set a clear vision and mission. You'll need to support diversity and inclusion, value servant leadership, determine an appropriate leadership style, inspire, motivate, and influence the team members, analyze team members and stakeholders' influence, and distinguish various options to lead various team members and stakeholders. So in lesson 2, when you were trying to build a shared understanding, lesson 2 covered starting the project, And one of the things that need to be done when you're starting a project is build a shared understanding with all the stakeholders. Okay, so not just the team members, but the stakeholders. They need to have a clear understanding of what the vision is. A lot is at stake at the beginning of the project, and things are moving fast. A lot can be included that is not necessary in a project. So it's important for you to have that clear vision for that project that you're working on. But for you to have that clear vision, you need to understand it yourself. So you need to create a project vision statement. It's actually created by the project sponsor, but have it, understand it, so that you'll be able to communicate that statement, that vision to the rest of the team members. The vision of the project, that vision statement should include the clear vision of the objectives of the project, how that project aligns with the organization's strategic goal as well. So have that, understand that vision statement so that you're able to communicate. It's your role and responsibility as a project manager to ensure that that vision is continuously communicated to the team members. They should always be aware. The vision will serve as your guiding light. In the event that you're stuck on your project, in the event that you come across some crossroads that you're trying to navigate and decide what direction to take, this vision will help you serve as that guiding light. So keep referring to it throughout the entire project so that you can maintain alignment with that vision. Okay. Lesson 2, that was covered. Okay. And also you covered trying to get a holistic understanding of the project. For you to communicate and always communicate the vision of this statement, you need to have a holistic understanding of the project. What were the reasons for this project being initiated? What are the boundaries, if any? Okay. Do you understand why the project was started? So first find that out, the boundaries of negotiation. If there is anything that is still up for negotiation, if there's still anything up for discussion, find that out, and then try and understand even the desired objectives. What is it that the project is aiming to achieve from this particular project? So gaining that, as opposed to just reading a statement that says this is the project, this is what the project is aiming to do. If you have a holistic understanding, you know the background of where the project is coming from, it is easy for you, even on a complex project, to translate that into some kind of simple language for the team members to understand. Okay, so once you've understood that, you've got your holistic understanding, you understand what's within the boundaries of the project, then you can apply your critical thinking and business acumen to the project. Okay, but how do you create this holistic understanding? Remember you talked about that in your PMP class. Ask the stakeholders, ask them to elaborate, to be very clear on what the expectations are. Let them clarify their vision, let them clarify what they're expecting from this project, and let that also be included. Include also asking the sponsor to clarify what the vision statement is. Okay? And look at the existing agreements. There are probably already agreements in place at the beginning of the project. Contracts that have been signed with maybe different parties that are working on the project, maybe 2 organizations coming together to work on this project. There are contracts there, memorandums of understanding, letters of agreement, formal agreements, communication between key stakeholders, like those emails that were exchanged probably with the directors at the top of the organization, saying, we have this idea, let's start this project. Those initial emails that started the project, you might want to have a look at those so that you gain an understanding of where this project is coming from, the background, why it was initiated, and what they're aiming to achieve. Okay, so you need to get all that context in place, understand that entire reasons behind the project being started so that you can be able to communicate it to your team members. Look at the business case. Look at the business needs. All those are documented studies that were done by a business analyst. The business case has the economic feasibility study. It will tell you if the project is feasible or not. It will give you an understanding whether it was the net present value that was passed, or maybe it was internal rate of return that was much better than the other projects that were selected. It has all that, and it also contains the benefits or what this particular project is trying to achieve. It provides a basis for the authorization. It would be nice for you to know why this project was authorized over the others, or why this project was selected over the others. Now, the business case has all that. Include all those reasons into your vision. Understand that reasons why this project was started. Inside the business case, you'll have the business needs. Why does the organization need this project? So it has that the descriptions of the high-level deliverables. It describes certain requirements, what needs creating, what needs performing. All those details are inside there. So yes, it would have been done by a business analyst, but if you get your hands on that, on those documents, you will be able to get a holistic understanding of what this project is intended for. Okay, so the business case includes the business needs. You'll find the business needs inside the business case. Okay, so once you've understood that, then try and negotiate on the project success criteria. How will you know that you've been successful with this project? So you need to negotiate that. Negotiate that set of criteria that says, yes, you will have completed the project if you meet these certain steps. So interview the stakeholders. What does success mean to them? Gather expert judgment, because technically there are certain technical aspects that need to be done. What are the technical success criteria? Check organizational key performance indicators, lessons learned, look at past historical projects, the quality policy. Maybe there's certain quality requirements that are needed. Your project cannot be successful if it does not meet certain ISO standards, perhaps. All those success criteria need to be understood. Okay, so try and get that and understand them. Speaking of key performance indicators, I think we got a definition that time. It's a set of metrics used to evaluate a project. Okay, and to evaluate even a project team's performance against the project vision and the objectives. So once you have that vision in place, then it's easy to start creating those key performance indicators. How will you know that the team is working towards the end result, that which you're aiming for? So put in place those key performance indicators, those set of criteria, that set of matrix that said, yes, we are headed in that direction and you're on the right track. Okay, so those are key performance indicators. And then once you've understood that, you have that holistic understanding, you have that background information, then it's easy for you to help everybody understand the vision. Remember, you have this team of diverse people. Some are qualified, some are interns, some are very experienced over 20 years, but not everyone will have understood that project. But everyone is on the team, and you need to help them understand that project. Sometimes a project is so complex, but you have that background information. You've gone through the business case, you've gone through our business needs, you've looked at emails that were exchanged. So help everybody understand the vision of the project, so that in the event that they're stuck on their activity, they can still navigate and pull themselves out of that. So use your interpersonal skills, your leadership power skills, okay, communication skills to communicate this vision to the stakeholders. But even communicating the vision to the team members can be difficult sometimes. You'll find that some people put a vision statement on a wall, but there are creative techniques that you can use. And if you remember, the product box exercise and the XP metaphor can be techniques that you can use to help the team members understand it from a very simplistic point of view. Product box exercise, I think you might have been told about that. That is just like explaining from a customer's perspective, what are the benefits of this project? Just like you'd see on a box. You enter a supermarket, you pick a box, and you read the benefits to you, and you pick one over the other. So what made you pick one box over the other? It appealed to you. Now, same thing. How would you describe the benefits of this project like you would on a product box so that someone sees the value of that project? So describe that. Try and explain it to them that this vision, you benefit this, you benefit the other. Then XP metaphor, just like in simplistic terms. simplistic way of explaining things in many familiar ways. And most of us are from Africa, I believe. And when you have a child and the child is you're trying to get the child to understand like some kind of, what's the word? Some kind of value. You might use a metaphor. You must use the hare and the rabbit. So use something similar, that technique to explain that complex idea. The more simpler you put it, then it even displays that you have understood it yourself. So the XP metaphor just explains that complex idea in simple, familiar terms that uses common language and vocabulary. Those two techniques, just creative ways of you trying to explain this complex vision that you've come across, helping others to understand it. Okay. Once you've understood that vision goes into the project charter. Okay. That vision, the reasons why the project has been undertaken, that goes into the project charter, the very first document of the project. Okay. And if anyone is looking to see what the project is about, they can find that in the project. They can find that vision in the project statement, in the project charter. Okay. So all of these are things that I would be included in a project charter. Remember, it's that document that authorizes the existence of a project, and it enables a project manager to apply company resources to project work, including there the rationale, why this project was started, the business need, how it aligns to strategic goals, so it keeps everyone focused on that clear project vision. Okay. Some of the things that would be included in the project charter, I think you all know this, just a 1-page, 2-page document that just summarizes what the project is about. Okay. Example of that. And that's hopefully a good understanding of, or a recap of your setting the clear vision and mission. Okay. So take a look at this. What's the primary purpose of setting a clear vision and mission for a project? What's the primary purpose of setting a clear vision and mission for a project team? Let's hope you all got that. To ensure the team understands the project goals and direction. Which of the following is a key benefit of having a well-defined vision statement? Which of the following is a key benefit of having a well-defined vision statement? It provides a clear direction and purpose for the project. And then lastly, what should be included in a mission statement for a project? What should be included in a mission statement for a project? A description of the project's vision and long-term impact. Okay, so communicating the vision to the team, that is one of your responsibilities as a project manager. The other thing that you need to do is support diversity and inclusion and inspire, motivate, and influence team members and stakeholders. Supporting diversity and inclusion. Remember, you have this diverse set of people, diverse in skill set, diverse in background, diverse in language, diverse in thinking. They are so diverse. Okay. And the more diverse your team is, the reaching perspectives they will be. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is very encouraged on your project. Empower them to embrace that diversity, empower them to be themselves in the workplace without any fear of any repercussions. But for them to do that, you'll have to create an environment that acknowledges that diversity in a positive way and encourages that diversity. So diversity, equity, and inclusion can be supported by creating a psychologically safe place for them. So diversity and psychological safety, they go hand in hand. Okay, you can't have diversity and not have a psychologically safe environment for the team members. Okay, whether it's a diversity in gender, diversity in age, they all need to be safe enough in that environment to be themselves. Okay, and remember, psychological safety is that psychosocial condition required for high-performing project teams. Okay, they should be comfortable being themselves at work. So create that psychological safety, it goes hand in hand with diversity. Okay, but we're not just talking about diversity in terms of age and gender and race and all of that, but even diversity in motivation. You recognize that they're different. You have different skill sets. You have different team members with different experiences, but even motivation. What motivates A may not motivate B. What motivates C may not motivate D. So even the motivation theories need to be different. So when you were looking at lesson 4, you talked about different motivational theories that you can apply. You can use 1, 2, you can combine them, but the goal here is for you to find different ways of motivating people. Started off by looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Herzberg's motivation theory, hygiene theory, and McGregor's theory X and Y, and McClelland's, those 4. Just understand them so that you're able to pick and choose which one you use to apply and motivate the team members. Regardless of what gender, regardless of what race, even regardless of whether they are virtual or not, all of them need to be motivated in order for them to be a high-performing team. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the first motivational theory. And it says that for individuals to actually be as high-performing, try and satisfy from the bottom up. There are those basic needs that they need to have. Then they'll need safety, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. So try and understand, where is this team member of yours? Would they be motivated by maybe a bonus, a monetary bonus, or would they benefit from getting gym membership perhaps, or maybe a promotion, or maybe just recognition? So Maslow's hierarchy of needs will help you understand and help you motivate those different individuals properly. Okay. After Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there was Herzberg's motivation hygiene theory. And Herzberg's argument, remember, was that there are certain aspects or certain things in an organization that would be motivating, and others would be good to have, like having good working environment, good relationship with your colleagues, great salary. That would be a good place to work, but it might not necessarily motivate you to be your high-performing self. So hygiene factors are just that. They are good to have, but they may not necessarily motivate you to put in the best work. Motivators, on the other hand, you see some level of advancement in the future. You've been recognized, you're engaged at work. Those are motivators. So the goal is to find a balance between those two: salary, work environment, advancement, recognition, and engagement, so that someone is happy with the salary, but also motivated to be their very best. The goal, remember, is to create a high-performing team. So Herzberg's motivation theory argues that. So look at your you look at your team members. Where do they fall? Do some of them just have hygiene factors? Would they be motivated then by recognition? Or maybe someone has advancement and a salary would be, an increase in salary would be best. Okay, those can help you to motivate them and keep them the high-performing self. Then you have McGregor's theory X and Y. And theory X was more on the authoritarian side, while theory Y was about participating. And theory X, that sort of manager, would argue that workers dislike working and they avoid working. So you need to really supervise them for them to be the high-performing self. That theory X manager is arguing that people avoid increased responsibility and they need to be directed. But on the other hand, theory Y is saying people want to be active and you don't need to stand over them for them to work. They will look for job satisfaction. They don't need that constant direction. So we are not saying one is wrong or the other. There are some industries, I think, that you talked about in your PMP, that some industries, the theory X is the right way of managing them. And then the theory Y is also a right way of managing certain industries. The only problem arises when theory X manager is trying to manage a theory Y individual, someone who works best on their own. But now you have a manager who's hovering over you. And then theory Y is trying to what? Is trying to manage a theory X person. Like, you can't use that attitude and let them to just get on with their work. They'll probably never do it. So that is where the problem comes in. Theory X manager managing theory Y individual, theory Y individual managing theory X. So understand your team members. Do they need to be directed? Can you leave them to get the work done? Because agile teams are more on the theory Y. They're self-motivating teams. Okay. Then lastly, you have McClelland's achievement motivation theory. And this one is looking at achievement, affiliation, and power, arguing that an individual's needs would be shaped by those experiences in their life in those three areas. But at one point in their life, one becomes dominant. So you might find a team member that has a cravings for so much power, or maybe so much affiliation, or so much achievement. And now the role for you as a project manager is try and find a balance of those three. Try and balance it out. What is dominating right now in this individual's life? Is it power? Is it affiliation? Is it achievement? And which one do you want to lift? And which one do you want to bring a little bit down? So use that information to influence goal setting, feedback, and even reward systems. Okay, try and understand. You're trying to understand your individuals, because not everyone is motivated by the same thing. Okay, so either you're combining McClelland and Maslow's, or you're going to use all four, but don't forget to use your interpersonal skills as well to try and understand those team members. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is not just about the difference in gender, difference in skills. It's also difference in these motivation theories. And there are so many out there that you can use to motivate those diverse set of people that you have. Okay. Another thing is, you've created a project charter. Uphold those ground rules that you've set. In order for you to be able to motivate and inspire these team members, let them help you, or let them set those ground rules. They are more likely to adhere to them once they have contributed to their creation. So they created the team charter, they are more likely to adhere to that. Inspire, it can be inspiring, it can be empowering to know that these are ground rules that you set yourself. Make them visible, keep them updated, carry them along with you all throughout the entire project. Okay, so inside the team charter, those ground rules can be very empowering and inspiring. But most importantly also is rewards and recognition. Inside your resource management plan, describe how you're going to reward and recognize the different individuals. And don't confuse the two. Rewards, recognition, sometimes used interchangeably, but they're different. The first one, the tangible ones, those are rewards. Okay, you're rewarding someone for something specific that they did. Okay, and it can be used as a motivator towards achieving something you want this person to achieve. Okay, but you can never reward without recognition. But recognition, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily mean that someone has gotten a reward. It's intangible. You're acknowledging someone's behavior, okay, rather than what they did, someone's behavior. So use them to motivate and inspire these people to be high-performing selves. So you're leading them again through supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion, the diverse ways of motivating those motivational theories, rewards and recognition, and empowering them to make their own decisions on how they'll resolve certain things. Let them set those ground rules and behaviors and team norms themselves. Okay. Okay, so supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion, we've covered. Inspire, motivate, and influence team members or stakeholders, we've also covered, looking at that team charter and even reward systems. Okay. So just a quick one. Which behavior demonstrates an inclusive leadership style? Which behavior demonstrates an inclusive leadership style? You said B, you did okay. Which of the following actions can help support cultural diversity in a team? Which of the following can help support cultural diversity in a team? Again, if you said B, you'd be in the right place. And then lastly, how can a project manager effectively use a reward system to enhance team performance? How can a project manager effectively use a reward system to enhance team performance? Okay. What's team-based achievements? Okay. So we are still leading a team. We're still looking at lesson 4. These were things that you covered in lesson 4. We've talked about creating a vision and a vision statement, ensuring that the team understands what the vision of the project is, that you covered in lesson 2. We've talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we've talked about inspiring and motivating. But also, servant leadership is key, determining their appropriate leadership style, and also distinguishing various options to lead the various team members. Okay, so let's look at that. Use your power skills. If you want to lead the team members, your power skills now come into play. Use those interpersonal skills, those interpersonal power skills, like collaboration, leadership, communication, having an innovative mindset, okay, empathy. All of those are key to leading that diversity that you have. Okay. Teams that with those skills can maintain influence with so many different stakeholders. Remember, you have different stakeholders, different team members, different skill set. You need all of these interpower skills to manage those team members. Okay. But these are just a few guidelines, remember, of developing inclusive leadership competencies, because you have different team members, different stakeholders, all of those under your leadership. So tailor that leadership approach and style. Lead with empathy. Understand what motivations and working styles vary. Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts. Some people need quiet places, and you talked about all of that. Some people need those agile spaces in order for them to do their work. Okay, and maintain transparency and openness to build trust and ensure that external resources are included. Okay, those are just guidelines. Your leadership skills that you need for that diverse team: communication, conflict management, we've talked about, critical thinking, cultural awareness, decision-making, emotional intelligence, that ethical approach, expert judgment, facilitation, meeting management, negotiation, networking, and team building. Okay. Interpersonal and team skills, active listening, remember, communication styles assessment. Don't assume that everybody is okay with a particular meeting. Ask them, perform that assessment to understand people's communication preferences. Emotional intelligence, understand your own emotions. How do you react in different situations? That will help you be more socially aware and therefore help you to build rapport with the others. Okay, influencing, motivation, nominal group technique, be politically aware, and transparency as well. All those are interpersonal skills that you need in order for you to lead your team. Okay, but there are different leadership styles that you can use. You're facing different stakeholders, maybe 2 different funders, different leadership style. Maybe 2 team members, a different leadership style there as well. So if you're conversant with a different leadership style, it's easy for you, or it becomes easier for you to select which style to use in what situation, because even the situation matters. Use a direct style when it suits, and that one is hierarchical, with you, the project manager, making all those decisions. Consultative, you're factoring in different opinions, but you're still making the decisions. If it's servant leadership, you're modeling those desired behaviors. So you're removing impediments, you're removing those blockers, you're being of service to the team, empowering them to be their high-performing selves. Consensus or collaborative, you allow the team to operate autonomously. And situational, the style changes to fit the context and maturity. Once you're conversant with those leadership styles, it becomes easier for you to apply them when it suits. Okay. If two senior stakeholders are conflicting, you might not want to use directive. You might want to use something else. Okay. So being conversant with them will help you apply them in the right situation. So those 5. But let's not confuse leadership and management. Okay. Leadership is all about guiding the team by using discussion and exchange of ideas. And management is about directing actions using your prescribed set of behaviors. So you're a project manager. You have the authority to apply certain powers and authority and apply certain company resources. That is management. But imagine if you build a rapport with your team members and you have a relationship with them, you understand them, you've gone beyond their job titles to get to know these team members. That would be leadership. So adapt that leadership style to different situations and stakeholders. Do you want to be a manager today and a leader tomorrow? Or do you want to be both? Okay. Can you be a manager in this situation and then a leader in the other situation? So depending on what situation is, you pick and choose which one it is. But don't confuse the two. Okay. Be aware of individual and team aims and working relationship. Use political awareness and even your emotional intelligence. Servant leadership is very key, especially if you're agile, and it's all about enabling or providing coaching and mentoring for the team, removing obstacles, impediments, and blockers, and focusing on their accomplishments. So be that servant leader, okay? Facilitate rather than manage. Provide that coaching and mentoring. Help the team to grow, okay? That is servant leadership. It's the preferred leadership style in Agile, okay? And adopt a growth mindset yourself. If you adopt a growth mindset yourself, you're committing to continuously improving, continuously learning, discovering different ways or better ways of getting things done. Okay. And by adopting that growth mindset, you're saying, let's try something different. This is the way things were done 20 years ago. We don't have to keep doing it the same way. Okay. So you're avoiding that complacency and blind acceptance that, oh, they're just accepting because this is how things were done. So you're letting past experience and processes provide guidance, but not dictating your actions. And by adopting that growth mindset, you're saying to everybody, we have researched and this is a new way of doing things. Okay, so keep that commit to continuously improving, and that way you'll even lead your team to grow themselves. Okay, team building is something else that can help your team to be high performing. If you have virtual team members, remember that if the funding allows, I'll be able to fly them in. Okay, they can be formal, they can be informal, brief or extended. You can facilitate them yourself or get a professional facilitator. Okay. Tuckman stages of team development. We looked at those. Every team will go through these stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. And if you change any dynamics, they'll probably go back to a stage that they had previously passed. They might have gotten to performing and may go back to storming. Whether you change team dynamics, you change team roles, change an individual, you add an individual. And because of that, every new individual that comes needs to be onboarded properly. So whether it's a team charter they need to look at, whether it's certain stages that they need to, some onboarding process that they need to go back so that you reduce the amount of time that the teams goes back to storming. Okay, so just bear that in mind, Tuckman stages of team development, and balance that team tone with a sense of urgency. Your project is there to achieve something. So you're not just executing the project, but let them execute with that sense of urgency in mind. Keep emphasizing the project's vision. Like I said, some people have it on the wall in the office. Emphasize the vision, emphasize the value. That will create the urgency. The organization needs this because of this. And commit to and be accountable for delivering value. Okay, you're focusing on that value that was stipulated, those benefits that were stipulated at the beginning in those documents. So commit to being accountable for delivering that, and envision the team as an active participant in delivering that organization's strategic vision. So yes, they're going to be executing, but ensure they execute with that sense of urgency, that this project is important for this organization because of these reasons. Okay. So we've looked at valuing servant leadership, determining an appropriate leadership style, and distinguishing the various options to lead various team members and stakeholders. Okay. That should be, we should have one more left for that. But before we do that, which of the following best describes the principles of servant leadership in a project management context? Okay. I hope you all said C. How can a project manager show that they value servant leadership when setting goals for the team? How can you show as a project manager that you value servant leadership when setting goals for the team? Okay. Define the goals that align with team member strength and professional growth. And the team member will resist feedback and suggestions from project manager. What influence strategy should the project manager use to improve that situation? There's a team member that's resisting feedback and suggestions from the project manager. What influence strategy should the project manager use to improve the situation? Okay, step B would be correct. Use a collaborative approach to understand the team member's perspective and address concerns. Okay. Okay, so let's complete this task 2 of leading a team by analyzing the team members and stakeholders' influence. So now we go back to lesson 2. Lesson 2, you identified stakeholders and then you formed a team. Okay. In identifying stakeholders, you didn't just create a stakeholder register, but you went beyond understanding whether this stakeholder is internal. You went beyond those job titles to understand the influence that this stakeholder has on your project. So you look at their power, you look at their interest in the project, and you're looking at the influence. All of those in a bid to understand your stakeholders and the influence that they can have on your project. Okay, so that was done in lesson 2. Okay, you looked at stakeholder mapping to get to know them better. You have over 200, say, you're on this project and you have over 200 stakeholders. They have power and they have interest, but some of them have low power and low interest. Others have high power and high interest. Okay. So when you use stakeholder mapping, like this 2-dimension grid or 3-dimension grid, it helps you map out and see which stakeholder is key so that you know where to place your influence. What influence does this person have? Someone has high power, high interest. Manage those closely. You would not want to avoid communication or maybe slack on your communication with such a stakeholder. Understand that person's influence on your project. Someone has high power, but low interest. Okay, keep them satisfied. Someone has high interest, but low power. Okay, so those are two-dimensional grid. If you plot them like the diagram in the left-hand side, on the right-hand side. But if you go down to the cube and add a third dimension to that power interest and add attitude, okay, you're still trying to understand these stakeholders a little bit further. So whether it's two-dimensional grid you use or whether it's three-dimensional grid, you're trying to understand these stakeholders' influence on your project. How can this stakeholder influence my project? Positively or even negative? Maybe they have connections. Maybe they can influence upward, downward, outward side. Maybe they even have social connections that you can take advantage of. So understand the directions, use the directions of influence to understand that social network of the project stakeholders. Can this stakeholder influence upward, senior management, downward, the team, outward, maybe certain clients and end users? What about sideways, your project manager, project management peers, or your PMO, for example? So if you understand, you might find that someone has low power, but their direction upward, the connections or social network that they have could influence your project somehow. You might be able to just pick out and take advantage of that social network. Okay, so directions of influence together with stakeholder mapping and also salience model. All of those help you to understand a stakeholder's potential influence on your project. Do they have urgency? What's the urgency for them about this project? Is it legitimate? And what is their power? Okay, power you have covered in when you were looking at the stakeholder mapping. That's the level of authority. Sometimes legitimacy is swapped with proximity, just trying to understand. Okay, some have both power and legitimacy. Some have both power and urgency, but there are those that have all three, urgency, and they fall in that center, those definitive stakeholders. You would not want to slack on your communications with these kind of stakeholders. So use salience model, stakeholder mapping, the 2-dimension and 3-dimension, use the directions of influence, all in a bid to understand the influence that your stakeholders can have on your project. Okay, and keep monitoring that engagement, that placement that you've placed. If you've placed them in a certain quadrant, keep monitoring it because it keeps changing. Even their perceptions, those attitudes, what perception do they have of your project? Okay, because those perceptions can be positive, they can be negative. Whether they are overly positive, overly negative, those can still be damaging to your project. So understand those stakeholder perceptions out there. You must have that holistic understanding of those perceptions so that you can help to either reduce them or clarify them or correct them. Because whether overly positive, overly negative, they can be damaging. Capture that feedback, capture those perceptions, and be able to control them. Okay. For the key stakeholders, try and interview them to understand what their project requirements are. You'll have to meet with these as regularly as possible. Communication is key, especially with those key stakeholders. But whether they're key or not, every stakeholder will need to be communicated to. You'll be surprised at how someone with low interest, low power can actually influence your project negatively because you've not communicated properly. Every single stakeholder, whether they're key or not, needs to be carried along with you all throughout the entire project. Some you're going to be communicating to as regularly as possible. Others maybe will receive a communication via social media or through the newspapers every month or so. But every stakeholder needs to be carried along through the entire project. Okay, so don't underestimate the low power, low interest, because they can have a big influence on your project, especially in large numbers, if you do not carry them along with you. So speaking of large and public groups, how would you communicate to those? You can use questionnaires and surveys, email campaigns, websites, newspapers, posters, advertising. Just make sure that you're communicating with them. The stakeholders are very key, and the influence that they can have on your project goes beyond you achieving within the scope or completing your project within the scope, within the budget, and within the timelines. Your project can be deemed unsuccessful simply because the stakeholders are not content. Okay, so capture that feedback, carry them along with you, understand the influence that they can have on the project that goes beyond you completing a project within those baselines. Okay, and once you've understood it, keep monitoring it, because someone's engagement level keeps changing. At the beginning of the project, they might have had low power, low interest. But as the project keeps going, that keeps changing. They can have been very negative about your project, but that can also change based on the communication that you have been providing. Maybe you've been communicating with them regularly, maybe you've engaged them frequently, and their communication has changed. But not even that, even the funding person, your funder, you have a funding stakeholder. At the beginning, they could have been very interested in your project, but as the project keeps going, maybe the engagement is reduced. They trust that the project will get done. So this engagement level is not just done at the beginning. You need to keep monitoring. Okay, some good practices: never use people's names or stakeholders' names on that grid. Okay, update it at key intervals. Use analysis and expert judgment, and keep a record of the reasons that you've placed an individual in that particular quadrant. Also remember, the quadrants never change. Keep satisfied, manage closely, monitor, keep informed. Those never change. What changes is what you're plotting on the axis. Power, interest, interest, impact, power, impact, that can change. Okay, but the quadrants do not change. So keep monitoring that, because you need to understand the influence of those stakeholders on your project. Okay, so that covers the last of leading a team, analyzing team members and stakeholders' influence. Okay, let's see a few questions. 3. A project manager finds that a highly influential stakeholder is not supportive of a key project deliverable. What should be the project manager's approach? A project manager finds that a highly influential stakeholder is not supportive of a key project deliverable. What should be a project manager's approach? If you said B, you'd be correct. In a project with multiple stakeholders, what's an effective way to manage their varying levels of influence? Multiple stakeholders in a project, what is the most effective way to manage those varying levels of influence? You said C, you'd be correct. Prioritize communication and engagement based on their level of influence and interest. And then lastly, a project manager is planning a strategy to manage stakeholder influence. What is the first step in developing this strategy? A project manager is planning a strategy to manage stakeholder influence. What's the first step in developing this strategy? If you said D, you'd be correct. Assess each stakeholder's level of influence and their potential impact on the project. Okay. So we've looked at 2 tasks. Okay. Task 1 was about managing conflict. Task 2 was about leading a team. And ignore that typo, that is task 3. You need to support team performance. And for you to support team performance, you should be able to appraise the team members' performance against key performance indicators, support and recognize team member growth and development, and determine appropriate feedback approach, and verify performance improvements. But remember, the key performance indicators stemmed from the vision. You came up with a vision. When you were talking about success criteria, then you started talking about key performance indicators. How will you know that you've been successful with this project? So as team members are working, they aim towards something, okay, indicating to them that yes, your performance is on the right track. So you need to appraise those team members against those key performance indicators. Objectives, you can use those. With servant leadership skills, you can use that. You're managing and leading, basically. Okay, that's combining the management aspect and the leading aspect. Manage the team through objectives, set them objectives, and don't set them by dictating those objectives. Agree on those objectives together, just like you would in performance in appraisals at the beginning of the year. Use those clear objectives to guide their high performing productivity and encourage them. You're trying to inspire them. Set them collaboratively with them, because once you set them together, they will be able to know that, yes, I will set this target. This is the goal I will set. We agreed on this target with my boss. And create challenging yet attainable objectives. So 2 things, you can manage by objectives, or you can use servant leadership by defining that vision. That vision is very key. Align your team members to that vision and motivate them to pursue that vision. Okay. So how do you assess the team members' performance? You can use formal assessments. Those your HR department can give you. You can use those formal assessments to perform those assessments, but try and identify the strengths, weaknesses, aspirations, and preferences of the team members. Where is the team member strong? You want to organize around their strengths. If they're weak, you want to develop their weakness. You want to be that servant leader that grows individuals. And what do they aspire to do? Okay, understand them so that you're able to give them the work that is going to help them be high performing. Someone is strong in people skills, set them in that area, unless you're trying to develop them, and conduct assessments. You wanted to improve certain skills about this person, have those opportunities for improvement worked. Conduct assessments when the team members join, and then keep monitoring for the progress. You sent them for training so that you could improve certain areas in this individual. Did that training work? Okay. So with Agile, the team is developing, they develop each other. Remember, they're working on those iterations together. They are a self-organized team in that psychologically safe environment. They will assess and regulate their own performance. They have targets to meet. They have committed to certain work for an iteration. They keep assessing themselves. They completed the work for the iteration. They completed what they had committed to, and they keep coaching themselves, because not everyone has the same Agile level or Agile skills. So they are coaching, building, and lifting and growing themselves in that iteration. The focus is the team in Agile rather than individuals, because they've committed to work for a particular iteration. But performance assessment tasks, you can compare the team's performance to the goals that you set. At the beginning of let's say an iteration, you set certain goals. How did the team perform against those goals? At the beginning of a phase, you set certain goals. How did the team perform? Against those key performance indicators, how did the team perform? So during those assessments, when you're going through the work and talking to this individual, reclarify their roles and responsibilities. Let them understand what their roles and responsibilities are. If you're going to give negative feedback, give it in that one-on-one session. If you're giving positive feedback, like to the team, that's okay. You can give the team the positive feedback. But remember that negative feedback given in front of everyone else will not be taken well. Whether there are issues that they are facing that you are not aware of, unresolved issues that they're going through, all those will come through in that meeting, in that performance assessment meeting. So have those meetings, understand what they're going through, and make those meetings regularly. If it's every quarter, every 3 quarters, every month, or if it's in Agile, through those retrospectives, you can find out what the team is going through, what needs to be resolved, what needs to be unresolved, and create individual training plans that you can grow these individuals. That is part of you being a servant leader. You want to grow these individuals. You want them to be even more high-performing selves. So create individual training plans so that they can pick those weak areas up and establish future goals. All these you set in those meetings that you have. If you're in predictive, have them regularly as possible to assess this individual's performance. If you're in Agile, probably even beyond the retrospectives, you can have one-on-one sessions with individuals. Okay, but schedule them and have them to talk about people's performance. And if it's negative feedback, give it during that time. Okay. So here we've appraised team performance against team member performance against key performance indicators. We've talked about supporting and recognizing team member growth and development and determining appropriate feedback approach and verifying performance improvements. Last 3 questions. What's the primary purpose of appraising team member performance against KPIs in project management? What is the primary purpose of appraising team member performance against KPIs? If you said C, you'd be okay. To assess team alignment with project objectives. Which feedback approach is most appropriate when a team member consistently meets or exceeds expectations? Which feedback approach is most appropriate when a team member consistently meets or exceeds expectations? You said C, positive reinforcement, you'll be okay. And lastly, which of the following best describes a performance improvement metric? Which of those best describes a performance improvement metric? Okay. Said that B, a quantitative measure used to assess progress, you would be correct. So those are the 3 tasks we've covered. The first 3 tasks in the people domain. Task 1, managing conflict. Task 2, leading a team. And task 3, supporting the team performance. Okay. I don't think we have much time for practice questions. I'd set some practice questions. Those were just quizzer. But any questions regarding what we've covered? We have 30 minutes, so I think let's move to the questions, to your questions. Anyone with questions? No one with questions, no one is opening the mic, so maybe we can continue with some practice questions. Try this one. You entered a project as a project manager when it's at requirements gathering phase. Two departments collaborating with you on this project have competing interests. So far, they have done everything in their ability to undermine the work, including sabotage. So your recent task is to exert some influence so as to complete this phase. What particular influence should be exerted to finish up this task? What particular influence should be exerted to finish up this task? Select 3. If you selected those 3, you'd be right. Influencing. Tom is a project manager for Storm Help. And in a recent meeting, he intentionally deceived that the project budget had been fully approved, which caused multiple purchase orders to be processed. Knowing about Tom's actions, the manager decided to confront him. On accounting for his deceit, Tom said, by intentionally giving misinformation, I hoped the budget would eventually be approved and everything would be fine then. What core value has been violated by Tom? Okay, honesty would be the right answer. Okay. Select 3 things an Agile team's social contract addresses. Select 3 things an Agile team's social contract addresses. If you said ground rules, group norms, and team values, you'd be correct. A product owner requests the Scrum Master to show the remaining work effort for the sprint. What will be shown to the product owner? When you're trying to monitor the progress of a project, what chart would you use? What would you show the product owner? We didn't cover this, but I'm sure you'll cover it when you're evaluating project progress. But if you want to show the remaining work effort for a sprint, you'd show a burn-down chart. Okay. John is managing a project which is delivered or which is believed to revolutionize the mobile fitness tracking industry. On discussing with the project sponsor about its approach, John tells the project sponsor that he wants to promote self-awareness, listening, and coaching versus controlling. What type of approach is being described by John? He wants to promote self-awareness, listening, coaching, versus controlling. What type of approach is being described by John? You got it right. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, humans have 5 basic needs arranged in a hierarchical order. What's the first set of needs in this order? What is the first set of needs in Maslow's hierarchy? Basic physical needs, be correct. Select 3 underlying success factors for forming agile teams. 3 underlying success factors for forming agile teams. You said the last 3 would be correct. You are the project manager for a large project, and according to the initial project schedule, it takes approximately 3 years to complete the project. Over the course of this project, some of the stakeholders have changed, and new stakeholders have become involved towards the end of the project. As the project has evolved into a new set of deliverables, the project team members have also changed, and you're having a hard time motivating the team. The techniques used with the previous team don't seem to work with this team. At various stages throughout the life cycle, more resources will be brought on and off the project team. So you want to resolve this problem soon. According to the project resource management knowledge area, what should you do? The techniques you are using do not work on this one. What should you do? You selected A, you'd be correct. You change the techniques used to motivate, lead, and coach the human resources involved in the project as the project progresses. Select 3 characteristics that servant leaders tend to exhibit. What are those 3 characteristics that servant leaders tend to exhibit? Okay. Promoting self-awareness, coaching, and helping people grow. Recognitions and rewards, which are important parts of team interaction, can formally recognize and promote desirable behavior. What else are true about rewards and recognition? Select 3. What is true about rewards and recognition? They should be proportional to the achievement. They should be linked to performance and they can kill motivation if used improperly. A project manager wants to build up a team based on each team member's strengths and weaknesses. The criteria for the manager's assessments include decision-making process, in-team interaction, and information handling process. What tool can this manager use to acquire the information? You want to build up a team using the team members' strengths and weaknesses, using a certain criteria. What tool can this manager use to acquire that information? Okay. Structured interviews, ability tests, and attitudinal surveys can all give that information. A project manager creates an official team charter while establishing a new project team. Select 2 things a project manager will include within that document. If you're creating a team charter, what is included in that team charter? Okay, a team charter includes the way you'd make decisions as a team and the team values as well. Your project sponsor approaches you with a small bonus check for your excellent work keeping costs in line with the budget, and you think the amount of the bonus check is fair and deserved. Select 2 correct statements about those rewards and recognition. You've been given a small bonus check, and you feel that the bonus check is fair and deserved. Select 2 correct statements. Okay. Rewards and recognitions are definitely not a result of the project, and they are not informal. They're actually formal ways of promoting desirable behavior. So the last 2 statements are correct. They are appropriately linked to performance, and they're in line with the performance, so you should accept it. What conflict resolution technique stresses areas of agreement rather than areas of difference? You want to stress areas of agreement rather than areas of difference. What resolution technique are you using? That smoothing, you'd be correct. And what is not a question, project team attempting to adopt an agile mindset may use to develop an implementation strategy. Out of those questions there, what is not a question that a project manager would use, a project team would use, if they are attempting to adopt an agile mindset? Okay. Because they're trying to adopt an agile mindset, they won't start looking at predictable ways of doing things. How can the team act in a predictable manner? Agile projects are far from predictable. The method that considers the power, urgency, and legitimacy of stakeholders is called? A method that considers the power, urgency, and legitimacy of stakeholders is what? It would be the Salience model. Okay, considers power, urgency, and legitimacy. Select 2 ways in which the servant leadership approach empowers teams. How does servant leadership approach empower teams? Select 2. Definitely not D, and not B as well. So A and C provides greater team accountability and supports the team through mentoring and encouragement. Select 2 ways in which the servant leadership approach, done this. Oh, that's the end of it. Any questions?
Please feel free to just raise your hand. I will unmute you. Let me just unmute. Let me just unmute everyone so that we can, if you have a question, you can ask directly. Okay. Right. Do you have questions? Yes, Maya.
Yes.
Go ahead. We can't hear you.
I'm here. Okay.
Your volume is too low. We can't hear you.
Just a minute, please.
Okay. Any other person?
Is it better?
Sorry?
Is it better?
No, it's pretty low, unless it's just me. Peace, are you able to hear?
Yeah, I can hear. I can hear.
Okay, then.
Yes. So, in the situation of you need to have stakeholders that are not having formal education, and you are trying to, and they are very key because they're essence of the now trying to go sometimes the one-on-one engagement, trying to identify their strengths. Sometimes it appears the difficulty is that some pretend to be, because of the lack of confidence, they might not. So in such instances, if you decide to take on the managerial approach, managerial approach to leading, would it be, I want to find out, would it be most beneficial to the deployment?
Okay, what I've picked up is your mic was breaking, so I didn't quite get everything, but I think you were saying there's how do you combine a management approach and a leadership approach? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, for a project that has to do with an NGO, and most of your stakeholders, at the end of the day, key stakeholders, have very little formal education, or at best none. Would it be best to just stick to the managerial instead of the servant leadership approach?
No, there is no prescribed approach that you need to take. You need to understand how best to lead them. And they are key stakeholders, but you're saying they have limited education, but they are very key stakeholders. So what are the expectations from the project? Bearing in mind that leadership, by saying that leadership approach, leadership also encompasses some of those management aspects. But management is all about, you're the project manager, you're assigned this is your job description. But leadership, you're going beyond that. Yes, you're assigned the project manager, but go beyond that and understand them. Have a relationship with these people. So it's about relational power as opposed to positional power, for example. You have a position, you're project manager. You have the power to do so many things. You've been assigned that power through the project charter, you signing that. But now go beyond that. Go beyond that and be a leader. Understand them. Go down to where they are, maybe, and speak their language, try and get the expectations, because they are key. And if they're key, they have to be managed closely. By saying they're key, you're saying they have high power and high interest in your project. So you have to manage them closely. Maybe they even want a meeting with you every day. So how are you going to engage these people? Okay, so the fact that you've categorized them as key means that you have to manage them closely. They have high power and high interest in their project. So regardless of what education level they are, you need to find a way to use your relational power, your leadership skills. It calls for you to be a leader here. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, if we do not have any questions, we'll give you back 10 minutes. But before that, I want to thank Peace for delivering such a very insightful session. It was the questions were very good, and I can tell that the candidates as well enjoyed and were able to stay engaged as well, even as they were answering the questions. So thank you so much for delivering today's session. And to all the candidates, thank you for showing up and staying connected to the end and answering the questions as well. We will see you on Thursday for another session before we take a break. So thank you so much, Peace, and thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chukwu. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.